My name is Jebra. I did everything right. I believed I was one of the good ones. I was not. This is UNWOKE, a memoir in episodes.
Oh my God!
My story is a cautionary tale. Buckle up. Chapter 2, Traitor Joe. During a heatwave-induced blackout, I was outside wrestling with a tire when my neighbor Joe approached. He noticed the low air and offered to fill it. I froze. I barely knew Joe, and his truck's "Let's Go Brandon" sticker, a conservative jab at Biden, screamed trouble. His American flag t-shirt glared like a warning, but Joe was African-American, and I dreaded seeming racist, so I nodded. Biden's America preached unity, and I'd been hell-bent on allyship. Joe was chatty, skipping my expected MAGA rants and gun talk. I exhaled until I realized he was unmasked. My urge to ask about his vaccination status was strong, yet I held back, concerned about sounding judgmental. I mulled over giving him reparations for his ancestors' likely enslavement or sending him Venmo for his time as he pumped air. But ultimately, I kept my peace, recording my guilt in my journal later. Allyship made existence complicated. Fetching the mail, Joe's wife, Stephanie, waved me over. She offered fresh banana bread, and not wanting to seem prejudiced, I followed her inside to the kitchen where the bread sat, cooling. Her kids were on the couch reading The Hardy Boys, not LGBTQIA+ authors like my kids' school demanded. I swallowed panic. Hardy Boys? That seemed old-fashioned and sexist. Stephanie's patriotic farmhouse aesthetic, complete with shiplap, blessed signs, and red, white, and blue pillows, screamed Hobby Lobby. My stomach twisted. When she mentioned Joe's army service, I braced for conservative dogma. Instead, she raved about Trader Joe's oat milk. Perhaps they were moderates. Later, I filled my journal with anxious scribbles, confused. I asked ChatGPT to analyze our interactions, wanting confirmation that I was acting appropriately. I was. I fretted that I oozed white privilege or ignored their struggles. To atone, I reread How to Be an Anti-Racist and lit my George Floyd commemorative candle, its luminosity soothing my soul. I was proud of my commitment to fairness. My housekeeper, Maria, could vouch for this. I assumed she was Mexican when I hired her. She corrected me sharply, saying she was born in Arizona. My undocumented gardener, Juan, shared his status, and I'd slipped him extra cash, proving my commitment to marginalized voices. My own closest friend was a neurodivergent, kink-positive, polyamorous, intersectionalist decolonizer. You can't get more open-minded and inclusive than I was. I planned to take my kids to Drag Queen Story Hour, but blackouts forced us to reenact a gender-fluid Anne Frank play by candlelight. The Trump years wore me down, but Biden's America restored me. Feeling secure with Biden in charge, I was able to amplify marginalized perspectives and exist authentically. Yet Joe and Stephanie's normalcy, their bread, their oat milk, rattled me. Had I misjudged them? Impossible. At book club, my friends Arson and Echo warned about people in red hats, and I wondered if I needed to avoid my neighbors for my own safety. Maybe they just needed to see that they were wrong. It's not that I hated Joe, it's that I needed to believe someone was worse than me, and there was nothing worse than Trumpers. One evening, I grabbed a pride flag, determined to hang it outside Joe's house to signal my open mind. I marched to their porch, heart pounding, picturing their shiplap walls. But as I raised the flag, their kids' laughter drifted out and I froze. What if they didn't need my gesture? What if they thought I was annoying? I remembered what Brad said before I laced up my sneakers to go next door. Are those flags just props? Are you being performative? Not everyone wants to hang a pride flag outside. I retreated, flag in hand, then played a video of Lizzo and her flute, the music grounding me. I was a work in progress, I told myself, rationalizing the unease. The world could keep its Let's Go Brandon stickers and Hobby Lobby pillows. I lived my truth. I raised my kids and secretly baked Stephanie's banana bread after she insisted on giving me the recipe. I reminded myself of a quote by a queer activist who said, "Righteousness doesn't stop at the property line. Inside my own house, the revolution must continue." I could not have agreed more. However, I hadn't always been this enlightened. My devotion to progress started years earlier, forged in that sickening orange intensity of 2016, when one election shattered everything I believed in. Chapter 3. Chaz was the summer of love. Summer 2020 saw the world engulfed in protests sparked by Black Lives Matter, eclipsing climate change worries temporarily. I'd just emerged from my COVID cocoon, where Brad and I had been marinating in hand sanitizer and CNN marathons, 6 feet apart on the couch and sleeping in separate bedrooms. Was I letting him touch me? Not unless he wore gloves. The kids were masked, their little faces fogging up with confusion as we force-fed them daily death toll updates. But then George Floyd happened. I watched the video on loop, sobbing into my organic hemp tissues. The rough texture caused my eyes to redden and swell. "Black Lives Matter!" I screamed at the TV, fist pumping the air. Brad glanced up from his Uber app, eyebrow arched. "Jebra, it's 3 a.m., the kids are asleep." But there was no sleep for me. Trump had unleashed something deep inside, and it was time for action. I ordered a BLM flag from Etsy, extra large, with glow-in-the-dark fists, and by the next day it was flapping from our balcony. Unfortunately, the HOA sent a letter stating it was too big. I refused to take it down. It wasn't my fault that someone on the board was racist. Masked and gloved, I marched down Fairfax Avenue, chanting "No justice, no peace," while dodging tear gas canisters. We brought the kids to show our family's united front. Literaleigh grumbled when I made her carry an "Abolish the Patriarchy" sign and decided to nap under a tree while the rest of us marched. We were a family of warriors, or so I told myself. At one rally, I spotted a vendor slinging Blacknificent t-shirts. Black plus magnificent. Get it? I bought 5. "We're all Blacknificent in this fight," I hollered, slipping one over Timothy's tie-dye tank top. "But we aren't black," he whined. "We are on the inside, where it counts," I said, patting his head. The shirt was a little tight, but I nodded. "You rock this," I told him as he held back tears. "It's hurting me. I'm like a sausage," he whimpered, touching the cloth straining over his midsection. "Sometimes fighting means pain." I hugged him and gave him a little push toward a crowd wearing vagina hats. Back home, I dove deep. First stop, a vision board, because what better way to manifest tolerance than crafting? I gathered the kids around the dining table, putting plastic sheets down for germ control, and we scoured old people magazines for black icons. Obama in his tan suit, Michelle sitting with her legs splayed open, Beyoncé in a leotard, and George Floyd's gentle face beaming like a saint. I printed out a photo of Whoopi Goldberg dressed in a flowing white tunic, looking like an angel. Timothy pasted stickers of raised fists and kente hearts, his tongue poking out in concentration. "Jebra, can we add a unicorn? For justice?" "You can do anything you want," I answered with a smile as I cut out a picture of Eddie Murphy from an Us Weekly. "Anything I want?" piped up Ginsburg, who was reading Art of the Deal on the couch. "Like vote Republican?" "Anything but that," I answered, glaring at him. Brad peeked in, snorted, and retreated to his essential worker duties. My vision board was placed in the living room, immediately adjacent to my large BLM flags, which functioned as drapes. The vision board did not suffice. That's when I heard about Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, a paradise born from the ashes of Floyd's murder. Activists had claimed 6 blocks of Capitol Hill after the Seattle PD abandoned their East Precinct like rats fleeing a sinking ship. I couldn't think of anything better than city blocks filled with pacifists. I envisioned linking arms and singing, sharing opinions, and discussing how much we hated Donald Trump. "It's perfect," I said to Brad, showing him a video of a tent-lined street. My heart galloped in excitement. No, euphoria. It represented a real-time utopia. No law enforcement, only shared gardens, tents offering sustenance freely, and vibrant murals proclaiming intentions to defund the police. The area was secured by armed individuals from groups like the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, while protesters managed supplies, creating a self-reliant vision of abolition. It was a symbol of unity, love, and the validation of Black existence. "This is it," I whispered. "A pilgrimage to the promised land." I eyed Literaleigh, lounging on the couch, watching Dr. Pimple Popper while emptying a bag of Cheetos directly into her mouth. She could benefit from visiting Seattle. Brad vetoed the whole family going, too dangerous considering children plus the environmental impact. But Literaleigh? This would be the perfect mother-daughter trip and give her content for her college essays, which I planned to write when we got back. My confidence in her capacity to compose an exceptional piece without assistance was low. I booked the red-eye to Seattle the next morning, packing our caftans, sweatpants, and a backpack full of organic, free-range, gluten-free, vegan, biodynamic mushroom jerky made on a farm in Portland, Oregon. We landed in a drizzle that seemed like holy tears. "This is it," I said to my daughter, taking her hand, which plunged into a bag of M&Ms. "Ugh, it's raining." She rolled her eyes and sighed. "I need a nap." "No rest when we have work to do," I said, raising my fist. We took a taxi straight to Cal Anderson Park, the beating heart of the area. "We'll be safe," I had promised Brad. "We'll be in the artsy neighborhood of the gays in the counterculture district. It's going to be educational." The air hummed with possibility. Barricades and plywood shields, speakers blasting Kendrick Lamar, and tents offering free yoga for the revolution. Literalleigh's eyes widened like saucers. "You're not making me exercise, are you?" I pointed to a mural-painted wall that read, "Welcome to the People's Republic, decolonize your mind," and directed her to take my picture in front of it, so I could signal to my followers that I was in Chaz, making a difference. A man with a megaphone shouted about rent forgiveness. A group in matching Socialist of America tees walked by. Someone in a black mask and red hoodie screamed about inclusivity. Literaleigh wanted to know if there was Wi-Fi. "Like, what is this?" She raised her eyebrows. "I smell pizza. Can we get some?" "You just ate," I told her. "Look around. This is what democracy looks like." But even as I said it, someone knocked over a trash can, and a shirtless guy smeared with paint started chanting, "Abolish the family!" I detected the scent of charcoal in the air, but unlike my daughter, I wasn't thinking about food. I pointed to a sign that read, "Let's talk about decolonization," and grinned. "This encapsulates the essence of life," my words came, breath drawn deep, vision dimmed. What kind of witty one-liner could I come up with for my next Instagram post? "That guy is handing out kind bars," Literaleigh said, licking her lips. "Is that a Ben & Jerry's food truck?" "Can you stop thinking about food and remember why we're here for George Floyd?" I raised my fist, then pointed to an area where vegetable-filled plastic crates were stacked one on top of another. A sign read, "No Cop Co-op," and another spelled out "People over Profit." How could anyone disagree? "Why is there a medical tent? Are people getting hurt?" Literaleigh asked, her brow furrowed in concern. "I don't feel safe." "The medic is here to hand out Band-Aids for blisters, and you don't feel safe. Your white privilege is showing." I shook my head and pointed to a black man in a puffer coat handing a blanket to an unhoused person. "This is the best of humanity," I said as an explosion went off. "A celebration!" I said quickly when Literaleigh began to cry. Someone must have been setting off fireworks. A woman screamed, "Are you going to tear gas us again?" I ignored her. She wasn't going to ruin our experience. Later that afternoon, we joined a circle for Abolition 101, where a facilitator in a keffiyeh scarf spoke with a megaphone. "No more 911 calls. We handle conflict with hearts and minds." Groups peacefully engaged in discussions about social justice, and my heart swelled with pride. Gazing outward, I observed crowds unified in their yearning for peace. These individuals, mirroring my conviction, viewed George Floyd as embodying hope, resilience, and uprightness. Morning rain gave way to sunshine, illuminating the scene with gold. I took photos and posted them to my social media to remind everyone that I was doing the work. But more social media would have to wait. I was there to show literally what it meant to enact change. We handed out water bottles, clapped as a non-binary Jesus gave an impromptu sermon, and passed out Clorox wipes to the unhoused, who tried to take over the sidewalk tents. I gave granola bars to a group sitting cross-legged on the street. They looked at me, then took everything in my PBS tote bag and walked off. It's better to give to the needy than to hoard, I told myself, though I suddenly wondered if I even believed that. Then a fight broke out near the barricade. Someone accused someone else of being a cop. I tried to look brave, filming on my phone for Instagram, when a body crashed into me and I went down hard, palms scraping asphalt. Literally screamed, "Mom!" But no one turned. They just stepped over us, chanting something about liberation. I stood up, bleeding a little, and looked around at the graffiti, the makeshift tents, the smoke curling through broken windows. A man in a gas mask sprayed something on a wall that said, "Eat the rich." He looked at me, and for a second, I wondered how hungry he was. I told myself this was still good, necessary, important, but as I wiped blood from my elbow, I wondered if we were safe. The cracks surfaced on day 2. People showed their rage over repressed emotions. Their voices got louder, anger boiling over until things grew violent. Someone snatched my tote bag from my hands, and a tear gas canister hit me square in the chest. I staggered, vision swimming. Fortunately, Literaleigh found refuge in a tent with 2 lesbians who were teaching her how to play the ukulele. "Maybe I shouldn't be here," I muttered through coughing fits. "You think?" With an outstretched hand, a lean, fair-skinned male, his face obscured by a black mask, raised me. "You need to get out of here. People a few blocks over are getting beaten, and when the police show up, forget it. Did you not hear the gunshots?" But the music and voices were so loud that I could not hear myself think. When a woman wearing an abortion pride shirt bumped into me and told me to "Get the fuck out of here," I took her advice. I grabbed Literaleigh from the lesbians and pulled her along to the open arms of a waiting Uber. "I almost died back there," she screamed. "Yes, baby," I admitted. "But you're safe now. We're going home." We left that city utopia, eyes stinging, clothes torn, my tote half empty. Home felt like the safest place. At the airport, I watched Literaleigh's tears slowly dry as she devoured a Cinnabon. Back home, Ginsburg, the most conservative, Trump-loving child of mine, looked me in the eye. "You know, Mom," he said, voice calm but deadly in its simplicity, "maybe you're wrong about all of it. Maybe you should open your mind and do your own research. You would have known Chaz was a danger zone." "Someone died," Brad told me, his face grim. I waved my hand. "We didn't see that. We were by the healing justice space, talking to people." I didn't tell him about the guy who pulled out a semi-automatic rifle during a heated argument with an anti-police protester. I saw on the news that people were getting hit with rubber bullets, and there was an entire group with rifles and face masks. "You endangered our daughter. And for what?" Brad shook his head. "Some social media posts?" "I got 300 likes on the picture of the homeless people on a couch," I whispered, as my mind flashed back to the barricades, boarded-up windows, the graffiti, the pepper spray, and flashbangs. I assumed it was going to be the summer of love, a socialist summer camp, and there were some nice people. "Well, it was right there on the news, Jebra. It was violent and dangerous. And what happened to your elbow?" Brad winced and pointed to my bloody arm. The bleeding had stopped, but blood stained my shirt. "I saw a car with bullet holes all over it," Literaleigh whined. Cocooned in a blanket, she reclined on the couch, remote control ready in her hand. I was so scared. "No, you weren't. You were looking for hamburgers." I shook my head. "It wasn't that bad." Brad opened the lid on a bottle of kombucha and took a long sip. "I get it. As Americans, yes, we have the right to peacefully assemble and the right to exercise free speech. But as parents, we must protect our kids. And that means we don't bring them into danger zones where someone could shoot them." I couldn't argue. I mean, I could, but I was too tired. Maybe, just maybe, I was wrong about some things. But my fight had just begun. After all, a few rotten apples wouldn't spoil the revolution. I had work to do. You've been listening to UNWOKE, a memoir of my complete unraveling. New chapters drop every Monday. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Substack, where I am still, unfortunately, processing my breakdown. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. And if you didn't enjoy it, then don't say anything at all. Hope to see you next week.
Attention. Attention. You must all clear this area.